Good afternoon. This is Media Center Ukraine, Odessa, and this is our second briefing for today. Our guests are Arturas Zokas, former mayor and now councilman of Vilnius, and Dmytro Abramenko, deputy head of national police in Odessa region, and Artyom Kasparyan, representative of Spilna Meta. Arturas will speak about humanitarian aid to Tsunami battalion and how the schools and kindergartens will be recovered with the help of Lithuania. So the floor is yours, Arturas. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank you for being here today. And I would like to thank Arturas Zokas, who have come to Ukraine, and he will provide aid today to our friends, Tsunami battalion, and I know well your commenter, Alexander Gostishev, and this is very important for us, for this aid to be provided to your battalion, because you're real heroes. You're the people who were involved in liberation of Kherson. We continue liberating other territories of Ukraine, and I am really happy that today, with the help of Arturas, we will be able to support you not only with the vehicle and electric generator, but with other items. We have also been developing a project rebuilding Ukraine to rebuild kindergartens and schools, and I think we will be able to discuss this in more details. Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you from Vilnius, and I'm pleased to be here before Christmas and to make a present, which is very symbolic. And of course, this is the first present this year from my team, from me personally, and from Lithuania. And I'm happy that Lithuanians support Ukraine a lot. There are a lot of private initiatives. And now people say that the world is not so interested in Ukraine as before in terms of providing aid. And as for our case, I just have to make a small post on Facebook, and we were able to get 10 proposals during the day. We have brought the part of the aid. The second part will be delivered after Christmas. And I believe that although it is small, this is a very important aid package to Tsunami battalion. And we will also provide cars, jeeps, generators, which are now needed in Ukraine. And we hope for that peace will be soon in Ukraine and the victory you're fighting for. And we are far from you, but we are also fighting for the victory. Thank you. Dmytro. And I'm pleased to be here now. I would like to thank you, Artur, for the continuous support to our Tsunami battalion. And now we are on the mission in Zaporizhia Oblast, and the whole battalion is there now. We need the special equipment, jeeps, generators, and this is great that you do not forget about us, that you continue your support. And using this opportunity, I would like to thank all volunteers of Odessa Oblast and of Ukraine in general. I would like to thank international partners for continuous support of our battalion. This is very appreciated. Thank you very much for this. Thank you. I would like to ask the first question. As for rebuilding of schools and kindergartens and the projects that can be involved in this process from your country. Artur, can you share more details? Yes, it is war now, but we should think about the future. And this is very important for Ukraine not to try to repair the broken infrastructure, but to build the new modern infrastructure that will become the basis for the future Ukraine. I have very good experience in this because I was elected the mayor of Vilnius for 3 times. and I have been contacting with Odessa over the last year. And now it's time to think about how to rebuild the future Ukraine. And I'm sure that Vilnius can help a lot with planning, with designing, and for example, when it comes to a destroyed kindergarten. As in your country, as in our country, kindergartens were built back in the Soviet times. So the projects and designs are typical, and we should think about what can we do to make these kindergartens modern. And in Vilnius and in Odessa, we have been thinking about the projects and proposals to rebuild infrastructure for the future Ukraine, for the European future of Ukraine. And I think that this is the right time to start thinking about this. Vilnius, Lithuania, and the Ministry of Environment are involved in the process. We have already contacted the minister, and they are more than pleased to participate in these projects. Now I can give floor to our journalists. Do you have any questions? Union, can you provide more details about the support and aid you are providing? At the moment, yes. Today we have arrived from Vilnius. And of course, with this we were supported with our colleagues from Ukraine, and we brought jeep, generators, sleeping bags, warm clothes, and telephones. You mean satellite telephones? No, this is another story. Okay, the next question then. Michael Vasura, Newsweek journal. So your battalion receives a lot from volunteers. What is the role of volunteers in this war? So in general, what is the role of volunteer? What is the contribution of volunteer to your victory? As I've already mentioned, this is a significant role. I can't say that only volunteers support us, because we are also supported by the National Police and the Directorate of the National Police in Odessa Oblast. And we are always happy to get aid. They're expensive things, or the things which are in demand now, like generators, which are difficult to buy now in Odessa, and our international partners provide this item to us. This is very needed on the front line, because now we are facing significant challenges in terms of power, and this is the basis of the work of smartphones, drones, which we have to charge. So that's why it is a significant contribution in the functioning of our battalion. And this is provided by volunteers. Erify, you've mentioned that you had to post on a small message on Facebook page, and it took only 1 day for people to support you. Was it a precedent, or it is a standard practice for people helping you? And you've also mentioned the support for the future. Are you going to raise money also through the post on Facebook? I would like to say that in Lithuania, people are very active. So there are different types of organizations which collect aid on the centralized level, or they support refugees from Ukraine. We have the support from our state. And also Vilnius also supports Ukraine a lot. I mean, the Council of Vilnius, so we provided €500,000, then we supported different initiatives. And also the private sector included business, Rotary clubs, some individuals. It is quite simple for people to get to raise money to provide aid to Ukraine. There are a lot of refugees from Ukraine now in our country. half of them, even more than half of them, or just stay with private persons, with individuals from our country. No state or council is involved in this, so people are ready to support you. They understand very well the situation in Ukraine. There are more than 70,000 refugees, Ukrainian refugees in Lithuania now. This is around 2.5% of the whole population. And we are the fourth country in the world supporting Ukraine. And individual citizens are also ready to support even more refugees from Ukraine, because we expect more because of winter time and power cuts. 1/3 of the refugees have already got their jobs in Lithuania. And all the initiatives are based on Facebook posts. This is true, not only on Facebook, but on other social media. People can just post that they are going to Ukraine and they want to take something there. And I actually have some friends from Kiev, and I brought Christmas presents to them. And that was 1 year since I last saw them. And that was like shelling in Kiev when I brought some Christmas gifts to them. And we don't know when we will see each other again. So Lithuania and the Lithuanian people are also on the front line, but on the different front line to support Ukrainians. I would also like to add that to answer your question, when I visited Lithuania last, and I coordinate SOS Ukraine project, SOS Ukraine project, which is a Lithuanian project, and there was a request to get computers for kindergartens and schools in the damaged cities. And back then, the private sector of Lithuania, together with the Ministry of Economy, quite quickly provided this aid, and together with Dmytro Abramenko, the director of the organization, we were able to provide this aid to Ukraine. So Lithuanian citizens just came to our office and brought what they could. So people are very quickly united in Lithuania to solve these issues, and I would like to thank the whole Lithuania for this. Am I right in understanding that 1/3 of Ukrainian refugees are already employed in Lithuania? So what are their jobs? How could they be so quickly integrated? I would like to say that the state institutions are hardly involved in this. There is just a law that if you are from Ukraine, you can get the residence permit and you can work in Lithuania. And people find work by themselves, so they're invited by different companies. It is now a normal thing to come to a shop and there will be a cash operator from Ukraine. And they speak Russian because the Lithuanians know Russian well. You can also come to a hairdressers, and there are Ukrainians there as well. The same can be said about the construction sector. So people were able to find work by themselves, or they were invited because Ukrainian people work well. That is, it is very simple for them to be integrated. There are also schools. There is one Ukrainian school which was established by the Lithuanian partners. The second school is so purely the Ukrainian initiative, so people can be educated there. So this is very supportive to children that suffered war here in Ukraine, and for them to be able to study and to think about their future. During the war, how your volunteer movement has been developed. And I talked to volunteers in Mykolaiv in March, and people just went to shops to find coffee, tea, socks to send to the front line. They also were looking for helmets and armor. But now you're able to send to Ukraine special phones, vehicles. So how the movement has developed since the first day of the war? And is it still important for you? Do you still need socks or underpants, or the state is able to provide these small things to the army? Yes, you're right. At the beginning of the war, no volunteer understood what was really important, what were the most pressing needs. Yes, the socks and underpants, now we're able to buy this by ourselves. We need special equipment, we need special vehicles, because you know that the weather conditions are bad in the combat zone, so there are almost no roads. So that's why we need heavy-duty vehicles like jeeps to move there. We also need electric generators, because we have significant problems now with the power supply generally in the country, and this is even more challenging on the front line. We also need UAVs. We have the whole reconnaissance unit, which professionally use these drones, right, like Mavic 3. So this is a very expensive equipment. It takes a long time to buy these from the state institutions. Yes, we're now get something from the state, from the national police, etc. But before that, that was fully supplied by volunteers, and their contribution was really very significant back then and still now. We need cars, we need UAVs, you need generators. We're able to buy all other things by ourselves. It's easier now, if compared to the start of the war, because at the beginning of the war there was more panic, less contacts, and in spring we supplied two consignments with food package, with the hygiene goods for refugees camps in Ukraine. Now the contacts are well established, and we are better aware of the needs of people here. We have contacted your humanitarian centers to know what are the priorities. It is quite difficult to find electric generators now in Lithuania, because all of them have been already sent to Ukraine. Similar to how it was difficult to find medication in spring, because everyone bought everything that was possible to send to Ukraine. In May, we organized a huge concert in Lithuania with Oleksiy Botvinov, who is a well-known piano player from Ukraine, and the orchestra Nikin from Lithuania was also involved in the orchestra. And actually, they had orchestra in Ukraine last year with Gedeon Kramer, the prominent violinist. And with the help of Red Cross from Italy, we were able to raise more than 100,000 euro during the concert. Rajuna and other artists also demonstrated everywhere that Italy supported Ukraine, because not only money is important, but also the political message. Everyone who thinks about the future and knows that Ukraine will win. Thank you. Are there any other questions? If no, I have one. This is the question about the projects. Artem told us that they are the project that will be financed by the European Union. Can you provide more details? I can say that I've already contacted the head of Cherkasy military administration, because they were first to initiate this around 3-4 years ago. In Uman district, the kindergarten was heavily damaged at the beginning of the war, and now, with the help of our Lithuanian colleagues and architects from there, to develop the project, not only to rebuild the kindergarten, but to build the new kindergarten, because Lithuania is the first country to leave the USSR, and they are well aware of the design of our schools and kindergartens, and they know well how to reconstruct or how to rebuild this infrastructure. That's why we have been in negotiations with the Cherkasy and Chernovtsi Oblast military administration. They have a lot of IDPs from other regions. That's why there is a lack of kindergartens and schools there. We have been also negotiating with Kyiv and Odessa Oblast, so we have a lot of work to do now. And I believe that by the end of January or February, we'll be able to organize forum to present typical projects that we'll be able to implement together with the Ministry of Education of Ukraine. We contacted the Deputy Minister, Mr. Vitrenko, for future of these projects. The next question, please. Can you compare the difference between the Ukrainian and Russian soldiers in terms of the equipment? I'm not talking about weaponry now, but about winter clothes, shoes, to feel comfortable in trenches. Is there any difference, and who's better equipped, and how does it impact the fact of that not only Ukrainian army but also Ukrainian in the international community fight there? It is impossible to compare Ukrainian servicemen and those inhumans. They are not soldiers, they are looters, they are murderers, they are rapists. That's why we can't compare them. We can compare Ukrainian servicemen with NATO allies. We have NATO servicemen that volunteers that come here to teach us, to teach tactical health care. And I believe that as of today, all Ukrainian armed forces are approximating the NATO standards. I can speak about our battalion. We have helmets, we have armor of the good class and quality. We have necessary combat skills. We train when we are not on the mission, and this is all the time. So we learn tactics and medical aid. I would also like to clarify the question of my colleague, because volunteers are involved in supplying the Ukrainian army, especially when it comes to items which is quite difficult to procure through the state. Here we speak about thermal imagers, about UAVs, and there is no phenomenon like this when it comes to Russia, luckily, when simple people or international partners provide weaponry and equipment. What are advantages of such volunteer support? And this is the question to you, Dmytro. What advantages the Ukrainian army and law enforcement bodies which are on the front line compare it to the army of the Russian Federation? I would like to say just once again, to repeat that this is a colossal contribution. Even when it comes to radio stations or UAVs, Mavic 3 is the UAV that has the protection level enough to use it for reconnaissance. As for the medication and medical health care, a lot of international organizations provided us first aid kits that meet NATO standards. And I think that you've seen the statistics already. You can compare the number of killed Ukrainian servicemen and the number of wounded. And the statistics is self-explanatory. And also, before this press conference, I told my colleagues that me personally has already undergone training through 20 different courses organized by international partners. These courses are organized by the EU to fight this country. I have kind of a geopolitical questions. Putin and Lukashenko have recently met to discuss who is the bigger dictator, and we know that they're accumulating forces in Belarus. I would like to ask you, is Lithuania concerned about this? Of course, when we got the first news that perhaps they would attempt to attack Kiev again from the northern part of Russia through Belarus, we discussed them, and we started discussing it a month ago, and now it is being discussed in Ukraine at the high level. But we have a clear understanding that even if Lukashenko orders Belarus army to attack Ukraine, the Belarus citizens are very unlikely to support this. And I think that after that, Lukashenko will just have to buy a ticket to flee Belarus to another country and to Venezuela. And I think that will be an important step that will make Lukashenko leave Belarus, and this will be crucial for the development of Belarus in the future. And a lot of leaders have been mentioning this, the leaders that are supported by Lithuania. And this will be a completely different direction for the development of Belarus, the EU development. We hope that this will be like this, and I think that the special forces of Ukraine and NATO partners are more aware about the situation there. But we hope that this will become an ignition for the changes in Belarus if Lukashenko orders to attack Ukraine. Thank you. We will finalize our briefing. I would like to thank our guests to find time today to visit us today. I would like to thank journalists who are here today. If you have any additional questions, you will be able to ask them before the briefing. We will have the next briefing in 1 hour. We will have with us the prosecutor of Odessa Oblast, and will tell us about the war crimes which are now investigated on the territory of Odessa Oblast.